All right. I think we're good. Welcome back to whatever my hands were doing there. I'm conducting this video into existence. Yeah. Welcome back to another one of these things. Hope you're doing swell. This wonderful Thursday. I don't know. I feel like a day behind every day this week. It's like I thought like Monday was Tuesday, Tuesday was Wednesday, Wednesday was Thursday. Today is Friday, which is terrible because I wish it were actually Friday. Like most people, I am sure. That's kind of weird though. Like I've never really kind of thought about like people saying it's like, gosh, I wish it was Friday. I'm like, do you really wish it was Friday? Wouldn't you rather wish it was Saturday? But I always find myself like saying that. I guess it's just like if you find yourself working and you're saying you wish it was a day, you're assuming that you're at work, so you just wish it were the last day you were there for the week. But like in my mind, I'm always like, that's kind of weird. Like if I were wishing it were any day, I just wish it were one where I wasn't here right now. I digress. Not really what I was planning on talking about at all, but that was just kind of just sort of crossed my mind. But yeah, today, lots of meetings in the day. But one of them might actually be a decent thing to talk about. So I mentioned probably just it wasn't even earlier this week, I think. Yeah, it was even just the last one of these I did. Was talking about like development team stuff, making something software or web related, but having a team of like developers, and this could really apply to any kind of team ever, anywhere really. We use a methodology or a framework, however you want to call it. Agile, not really Scrum, but it's like Scrum Kanban. The important part is the Agile part, where we're like wanting to do things iteratively to like deliver like a solution or a product to the customer that the customer wanted. In the way back days of probably like 10 years ago, and even still in some places today, like the way that you would develop something is just by writing this huge document of everything that needs to be done in it for like a year, and then you hand it off to a development team and you hope they make the right thing, and you hope that what was written a year ago is still what customers want today, and you're always like a year behind what your customers want when you're doing that. Like you can't, it wasn't like possible, it wasn't like in that mentality of developing things to change what you're working on to actually be relevant or valuable. You just built whatever the document said. Agile lets you like continually talk to customers and get feedback and make sure that you're building the best thing possible. So you're not in a scenario of reading a document from a year ago and building that without ever talking with somebody to make sure that's still something they want. So like it just sounds like the right way to do stuff. Like I got into development just not even knowing what Agile was, but just understanding that, yeah, that sounds a lot better than the other one, which is called waterfall. That was like my first, like that was like my second interview with where I'm at right now. Like that was 8 years ago, where I was just like, yeah, I don't know what you mean by Agile, but I don't know why you wouldn't do anything else, because anything else sounds kind of dumb. Not enough for them to turn me away there. Just not knowing the buzzword, but understanding the methodology. Coming from a game design background too, though, I'm like used to working in that kind of mindset. So like I don't want to be programming something that doesn't fit the game design. The game design is a living document. It's something that changes over time, and you have to change it. You can't like build something and then it's just like you got to the end and you're like, oh well, turns out some decision we made a long time ago doesn't make this possible. You can't undo everything and go back there. You're on a timeline. You got to finish that thing. So yeah, suffice to say, like the development side of it, like actually delivering a product is interesting and, you know, good for customers. But one of the things that I particularly like about that methodology is this concept of like ceremonies that you have. They're basically meetings you have on a regular basis. Ceremonies makes it sound like royal or something. It's not. You basically have these recurring meetings. One of them is called stand up, where it's really just the team gets together once a day and talks with each other about stuff that they've been working on, any obstacles that they have, and how they can clear those out. Similar to like a daily report. If you're not careful, they can turn into that, but it's really just a place for the team to communicate and kind of understand where people are at. Then you have review. That's when you actually talk about the work that you've done over the past, what they call an iteration, the time since you've last met, to go over what you've finished, what's in the product now. That's when you get your feedback and iterate on what you've made, potentially. Another part of that is planning, where every one of those iterations, the team gets back together to discuss what should be worked on next. Is what we thought we were going to be working on 2 weeks ago the same thing as it is now? Another one is called grooming, where you take a look at all of the work. It doesn't have to be like once per iteration. It could be more, but generally you meet once to go over what all of the stuff on your backlog is. What's all the stuff on my to-do list? Is it in the right order? Has anything changed about it? Very similar to planning. Planning is just basically pulling it in so that we're actively working on it, and grooming is planning and getting together, cleaning up all of the stuff that there is to do. You're not actively working on that stuff yet. The last one is my favorite meeting out of all of them. It's called Retrospective. And it can be a really super duper helpful discussion if you set it up for your team, your people, excuse me, to feel comfortable enough to let you know what's on their mind. The idea of a retrospective isn't as well defined as the other parts of, or the other meetings, these ceremonies that are in this methodology. The other ones have like very, like, you know exactly what you're talking about at any one of those meetings, but the sort of not specificness, whatever, of the retrospective is what makes it kind of an interesting meeting. The intent of it is to bring the team together and talk about things that they could be doing better. So it's already kind of up there in my ranking list just from a self-improvement standpoint. I really don't like when like a reason for doing something is because that's what we've always done. Whenever I'm talking with people that I work with, I make sure that is like, it's okay to say that. It's never acceptable for that to be the only reason we don't change something. Having always done it is not how things change. It will stay the same forever if you constantly give that reason and nothing happens. And this kind of forum gives people a chance to come forward with things that like are part of your process. Like, is anybody using kind of like a weird like coding paradigm? Is there like a new library or language that people are interested in, or a new way of thinking about stuff? Does somebody seem like they're really stuck on a problem and need help? How do we like gauge when to jump in and help other people? Things like that. And if you have a team that like kind of like at least cares a bit about, well, one, each other, and two, the thing that you're working on, that's kind of a recipe for success there. The third piece there is that they need to feel comfortable. That's kind of one of my things as when I was a developer, when I was like half a developer, half a scrum master, and now today when I'm half a development manager, half a developer, and half a scrum master. I have too many halves to go around. But one of those things that I like to do is make sure the team feels comfortable talking about things that need talking about. The main reason it comes up today is that one of the teams I work with had their retrospective today, and it felt like we were about to gloss over kind of a big issue. It was our current Scrum Master was like, it's good, this has really come a long way, and we should just be happy about the progress we made. And like, I didn't quite agree with that. I could feel that a lot of people in the room didn't agree with that, but they also didn't want to challenge it either. So kind of as somebody in the room who can kind of set that comfort level, they just develop a lot of respect from people and like they're okay speaking their mind if you speak your mind first. So I kind of call that out, and I'm like, I actually probably wouldn't agree with that entirely. I think where we're at right now is a far cry from where we need to be. It's good that you're doing this stuff, but what we're looking at here is really just a list of goals, not plans, and we need plans if you want us to do work. And what spun off of that was probably what a lot of people might consider like friction. Like there was a lot of, it felt like a pent up, not anger, but frustration with the group. But like if you don't talk about these things, that's kind of what happens. So what that ended up doing was just sort of like pulling a band-aid off of the team, or, and it's probably like one of the better analogies I can think of, I'm not sure what else I would describe it as, is there's something that's covering up something else that everybody kind of wants to talk about, but they don't really want to do that. And we're like looking at the Band-Aid and we're kind of picking at it and we're like, yeah, okay, it's doing good now. And then you're like, hold on a second, there's something underneath here. And if you can have somebody in that group, or you can be that person in that group that can set that comfort level, like be sure to establish, especially if you're like somebody who is a like viewed as a leader, you don't have to see yourself as a leader to like be a leader in these scenarios. I don't like considering myself to be a leader for this group, but that doesn't change the fact that they look at me that way. And if you do sense, if you're in that kind of scenario and you do sense that kind of friction or that kind of like frustration, don't be afraid to set that comfort level for them to actually start talking about it. Having somebody they trust just candidly say the thing that's on people's minds so that a conversation actually happens is huge. It's those moments that make me really like that kind of meeting, because on the other side we come to some consensus. What's wrong? We don't really have a plan of things to work on. It's like, oh, well, what do you need? Like, what information do you need from us? Basically everything at this moment, because the only actionable work we have for this feature is a story that says, do the thing. There's no actual work to work on. There's nothing to pull that guides us in what we need to do. We're dependent on another group to give us acceptance criteria, things to build, things that we check off. We're like, yep, the thing does this now, and it's good to go. I just realized my check marks are going the wrong way because of the mirrored view. There we go. Okay, cool. Now we got that out of the way. But identifying that problem and realizing that, okay, so there's a problem in this pipeline where this team isn't getting everything they need. Can the team for this specific instance fill that gap? Don't wait for it. We give you the go signal. You're okay to go run with it. So we got that and we're okay. The team effectively knock down a blocker, and they will, a little bit begrudgingly, because it's not our normal way of doing things, we'll get over that obstacle and keep going, make progress. That's like a really effective use of that. And like I'm always afraid that when people see that, it's like if you're in the middle of that conversation and it feels so like everyone's kind of frustrated, it doesn't feel like anything's really going on. But if you do remember those things and like latch onto those action items and then just stay true to those, actually do them, a lot of good comes out of conversations like that. The real thing there is just having that comfort zone that people can kind of speak their mind in and not be afraid to make themselves better, especially when facing problems where it's hard to talk about per se. Like it's not easy to say that the reason we don't have this information is because somebody specifically on the team isn't getting it to us. We don't know why they're not getting it to us, but that's the problem. We're not saying they're bad. We're just saying that there's something getting in their way of doing their job, whether it be them not wanting to do it or somebody else or just some other thing, like they're just in too many meetings. Too many other people need their attention. They can't do their job if they're constantly being asked to do other things. So, but just identifying that and seeing where to go, both sides of the equation have work to do. And you can actually go do stuff now. Kind of a win-win. But those kinds of conversations don't happen if all you do is go there and sort of run through a checklist of things like, what are we doing well? What are we doing? What could we do better? What should we stop doing? Like, those are okay. Like, if you literally have nothing else to say and you're just kind of like, yeah, let's actually take an inventory of all the stuff that we do, wish we did, and wish we didn't do. Those are probably pretty helpful, but it's probably not like a great thing to do that every few weeks. It's pretty good to do that maybe like once a quarter, have 2 times a year, once a year, something like that, just to kind of set your baseline. But like actually getting into the weeds and breaking down those obstacles, that's a pretty good way to go about it. Anyway, that's kind of why I just like those kinds of meetings. They don't have a lot of form, but there's a lot that you can pull from them. Even if that form isn't there, you kind of make it that way. And sort of giving that space to the people that you work with. And like I said, I talked about this completely as like a development team, but it could work for anything. Like, even if it's just something like you have to work with like a bunch of people on a school project for something, and you're working on them with it for like, or working on it with them for like the whole like semester or something, then setting just checkpoints to check in with everybody and be like, hey, how's everybody doing? Is everyone doing all right? Can we be doing anything better as a group? Does anybody need like help? Is there something that we can do to make this project go better? Like, it could just work in that kind of setting. It could work in like if you're just like a bunch of people working in like a store or something, like you're just working the floor in retail, like getting everybody together to understand kind of how things are going and where people are. It's kind of universal. It's just people getting a better idea of what everyone else is doing, what's causing problems, and how to knock down barriers that are sort of protecting those problems from being solved. So it can just be applied anywhere. That's a part of why I like it. The other things are just like, okay, cool, yeah, we're just talking about work and planning work and things like that. That's not always applicable. Like, not every group of people who's working on something is going to have something long-term like a development project. But everybody who's working on a team is working on a team. And that's kind of that meeting to just be a better team. Probably a decent way to end that. So I'll leave it at that. Those are some thoughts I had. Good. It was just like having a good meeting like that is just sort of like, okay, cool. We actually got some stuff to take away from. I don't say that often. I wish I could say that more often, that all of my meetings are worth my time. But sadly, that's like maybe less than 50% are worth my time, unfortunately. But that's the trade-off. You get some good ones, you get some bad ones. Oh well. Anywho, that's it for today. Hope you're having a wonderful Thursday and that you're going to enjoy the first half of your Friday or whatever. I put these up like people are going to watch it the same day. That's never going to happen. I put them up too late. But yeah. Keep doing what you're doing. Have a good time. Stuff like that. And we'll catch you in the next one. See ya.